Thanks for having me here, Antonio. It's good to see some familiar faces. Sally, that was great. Thanks for that. It's nice to meet some new people. Stefan, looking forward to hearing from you later. Yeah, it's not raining. Yesterday it was pouring rain, so we're glad that the weather's getting better. Today, I want to share a story. I love stories. Today is kind of one of an adventure of how Mir came to existence. And for me, it's I feel like it's a privilege to share with you guys today about what we do and how we do it. So my story actually kind of starts off with 2006. I was basically one of the selfish people I knew. I like to describe myself as I was kind of a pretentious douchebag. Not everybody can call themselves that, but that was me. There I am being a douchebag. 2006, I had a small media production company. I was hanging out of helicopters, making ski films. I thought I was living the dream. I kind of was. But my life took a quick turn pretty quickly. In 2006, filming at Stevens Pass, I ended up hitting a tree, breaking my femur right in half. And at the time, my college roommate had done something similar 2 years earlier. And he said, if you ever break your femur, you can actually die within 10 minutes if you hit your femoral artery. So I find myself against a tree with a broken femur and thinking that, holy shit, I could die within 10 minutes. Not everybody has a life or death experience like this. But for me, I was laying against that tree. I was fairly calm. And I thought of two things. The first was, at the time, I was dating my now wife. We've been dating for 3 years, and I thought, if I live through this experience, I need to marry this woman. Like, I will definitely miss out on this. She's here. If you see the Vishla and the 1-year-old baby in the back walking around, say hi to them. Hey, babe. Hey, Winter. There we go. So it was, for me, it was like, I got to marry this woman. She's incredible. We've been married 10 years this summer. We have a beautiful 1-year-old little girl. Things that we like to do together is water ski with our clothes on. We like to climb mountains. This is us, 10 years ago. We looked great. She still looks great today. I've aged a little bit. Lots of gray hair coming in from all the startup stories. This is Sienna, our 1-year-old little girl. So that first thought that I had against my tree worked out pretty well for me. The second thing I thought of was very morbid, but what would happen if I passed away? What would people say about me at my funeral? It's a very morbid thought, but that's exactly what came into my head. And it was kind of a changing moment for me in my life, in that I wasn't very happy with what I thought about it. I was like, nobody would get up there at my funeral and say good things about me. They wouldn't say Bryan cared about his community or he did things for other people. I was kind of a douchebag. I put a beetle on top of our high school roof. That was me. I was kind of that prankster guy. And so it was really kind of a wake-up call for me, because I wanted to be living a legacy. I had a great example. My grandparents, this is my grandfather. We called him Papa, Dean Pape. And if you drive him down the West Coast, in Portland, Seattle, San Diego, you'll see a lot of these signs. My grandfather had started this company after World War II, so I saw this legacy of my grandfather building this tremendously successful family business. But what happened is he passed away in the mid-90s, and while he was generous during his life, he actually missed out on that later in life generosity. And so after he passed away, my grandma started a family foundation, and so from an early age, I was exposed to philanthropy. And it was interesting to reflect kind of right after that moment of almost losing my life and seeing that there's this opportunity that if you build a successful company at the end of your life, then you can be generous. Well, the problem is if you don't make it to the end of your life and a 80-year-old person, you kind of miss out on that generosity. And so I thought there's this gap between business and philanthropy. And how do you bring that gap together and create something where you can give every single day and be generous? And so I started thinking about this after 2006. How can I be generous while making a product or making a thing? And at the time, right after that accident, I happened to become the first employee of a small little company called Little Hottie's Hand Warmers. People have quickly reminded me that it's not good to tell people that you have sweat equity in Little Hotties. So I like to define that it's sweat equity in Little Hottie's Hand Warmers, an outdoor hand warmer company, just to make sure there's clarification there. But had the unique opportunity at 20. I was flying back and forth from China, managing our supply chain. Rick, the founder, didn't like going over there, and the opportunity to learn about sales, strategy. We sold in a Costco REI. We ended up selling the business in 2009. And I thought, this is my opportunity. I can now go out and start my own company. And I didn't know what to do. So just kind of looking around at different ideas. And I see a Nalgene here. I'm going to pick on you. I grew up on Nalgenes. I grew up backpacking, and I used them all the time. And I thought, this is probably the worst designed product. You have the lid that opens. It hits you in the face every time you drink from it. It doesn't fit in your cup holder. It rolls around the back of your car. You have to have an insert so that when you drink from it, you don't spill water all over your face. And so I thought there's got to be a better opportunity here to create something that's really simple, functional, beautiful. So we came up with this first design for the mirror bottles. And when I started working on this, I thought, how can I use my business to help? How can I do this? And I was really coming up empty. And for me, I thought, how do we link between the product that we're building and how we're giving? And the question that I asked was, how can we help? But it also happened with another gentleman, Jason Kyler. So during college, my wife nannied for him. We were dating at the time, and Jason was working on this small startup that was kind of under wraps. And we were over at his house for dinner, and he said, hey, Bryan and Rebecca, I'd love for you guys to beta test this small website called Hulu.com. So we jumped on there. We're beta testing Hulu, and Jason ended up giving ad space to a great person by the name of Scott Harrison, who started Charity Water, and he broke it down that close to 1 billion people lacked access to clean water. And this kind of like blew my mind because I traveled around the world, I'd seen poverty, but I had no idea that 3 times the size of the U.S. population did not have clean water, something that I take for granted that we have access to every single day. And so I thought, let's pair giving clean water with the water bottles that we're selling. So from there, I went to Charity Water and I said, hey, we'd love to help you guys as we sell product. We're going to give, some of our revenue to you guys. And they said, great. And I said, hey, can we go with you on a trip? We'd love to experience this firsthand and see what it's like for people to not have access to clean water. And they said, actually, we don't do donor trips. And I was like, that's really too bad because I'd love to go and experience this. I want to see firsthand what it's like to not have access to clean water. And they said, sorry. And I said, okay, well, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And what ended up happening was the summer of 2010 when we launched the brand. My good friend John Keatley, he's done some amazing photography for some really phenomenal people around the world. He just said the question, how can I help you with your business? And I said, well, let's do something funny. Let's do an ad campaign. So we ended up making fun of Nalgene. We said, let's make some water beards. So we did some photos. And turns out that this nice lady, Courtney, came on the photo shoot last minute. And we're just chatting about the business and what we're doing. She goes, hey, I'm not really a networker, but I'd love to introduce you to my brother-in-law who happens to build wells in Liberia. And I'm like, that sounds interesting. Let's meet. So we connect with Darl, and Darl just says, hey, I've been building wells in Liberia for the last 10 years. My grandparents have been there for over 40 years as missionaries. And I asked the question of how can I help this community? And they said, we need clean water. That's the fundamental of us being able to thrive as humans is clean water. So I met with him, and he said, do you want to go to Liberia in January? And so we said, yeah, let's figure it out. We'll probably have enough sales by then to go build some wells. So we headed over to Liberia, Africa in 2011, promptly ran out of gas. This is how you fill up gas in rural Liberia. And this is what we saw. So this is a very common situation, unfortunately, in West Africa, where people are bathing, they're drinking, they're washing their clothes from the same water source. And so it was really heartbreaking because while we were building 2 water projects over there were still hundreds of thousands of people drinking from dirty ponds, even wells that had collapsed. But we met this man, Prince Kondo, who is Liberian. He taught himself to read and write as an adult, which is just crazy to me. And he's so thankful for the electricity that has his house so that he can stay up all night sometimes to get his work done. I mean, it's just like he's so grateful for the simplest things that we all take for granted, myself included. So he's probably built collectively dozens of wells in his community. We got the opportunity to kind of share with the Dark Forest community here, our first project, how we build wells and what the clean water will do for them. These are the kids in the Dark Forest community. This is their first time having access to clean water. It was an unbelievable experience. And this is the team that we went over there with. There were 3 things that we kind of took away from this trip that have really changed the trajectory of Mir as a brand and as a company. The first was, these are the GPS coordinates of our first clean water project. And so after I came back from Liberia, I showed my friends who had first bought our product, showed them photos, showed them where we went, and they said, wait, so the bottle that I bought actually went to this project, and a huge light bulb went off, and I thought, yes, let's connect every single product that's purchased with a trackable giving project. So what we do is now every single product that you purchase from Mir has a code on it. So you look on the bottom of the bottle, of our backpack, our bikes, our journals, and you'll see a code and you can register it. And what we do is we connect you to the project around the world. We show you photos, we give you updates. What's great now is my wife actually heads up our impact team. There's two of them. And it's great to be able to work together. Here's an example of our website. You can punch your code in. Has an interactive map. You can go in there, look at GPS coordinates. We've actually had a customer find one of our projects, go there and meet the community. So it's cool to be able to see our actual customers go and interact with their purchase. The second thing that came out of this trip is a kind of a wild one, but we saw people using bikes to get to and from school. So I came back from Liberia and I thought, why don't we just start a bike brand? Why don't we make bikes and then help get people onto bikes? You know, the typical thought that you have when you go over internationally. And I thought, well, I have a steel rod in my leg. Let's make steel bikes. Why not? Made sense to me. My wife was like, don't do it. My attorney was like, definitely don't do it. But we proceeded, and I asked my buddy Bryce, who started Evo, I said, hey, would you be able to help me? And he said, yeah. I've got this guy, Kevin. He started Transition downhill bikes. So I met with Kevin. He's like, I think you're crazy, but I'll totally help you out. He and his wife had adopted a girl from Ethiopia. So he had seen the power of bikes firsthand. He said, I'll definitely help you guys out. So here's Kevin at our Taiwan factory with our first bike, and he's a great individual, great human. And I'm like, how are we going to sell bikes? I don't necessarily want to sell to independent bike dealers. That seems like a really hard business. Well, let's just go straight to REI. So I call up my buddy Matt, and I'm like, Matt, you used to be a buyer at REI, right? He's like, yeah. And I go, what about just taking our bike down there and showing the bike buyer? He goes, sure, no problem. So he actually takes one of our bikes, starts riding around the buying office, goes over to the buyer's desk and says, hey, will you meet with my buddy Bryan? He's starting this bike company. You should check them out. They're very generous. They've got some good stuff going on. He goes, sure, I'll meet him at Interbike. So Matt calls me back up and says, hey, good news. Mark will meet with you at Interbike. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, it's the biggest bike show in America. I'm like, all right, cool. So I call up Interbike, and they're like, actually, we're sold out, but there's this health expo, and it's in the basement version. You know, it's like the basement of Mandalay Bay. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll go. So we put the booth on the Amex. We drive down to Vegas, and we promptly meet with REI for about 30 minutes, which is funny because we're in Seattle, they're in Seattle. So we all head down to Vegas to have a quick chat. And they say, we'll put you in 5 doors. Fast forward, we got our kids' balance bike into all doors around REI, which is nationwide, which is cool. Outside Magazine put us in their Gear of the Year issue with our women's mixed e-bike. So that was a cool experience. And I'm on this high, and I'm thinking, this is like, it can't get any better than this. But what happened next is pretty incredible. We got an email from a guy, Paul, and we didn't have a phone number on our website at the time back in 2013 because there was like 4 of us. We didn't have time to answer the phone. So everything came in through email. And Paul goes, hey, this is Paul from Patagonia. Not sure if you've heard of us. And we'd love to work with you guys. We love your growler. We love your products. We love your mission. Could you chat with us? I think, yeah, that's probably a good idea. We should probably chat with Patagonia. So I fly down to Ventura. I meet with Chipper Bro, another great human. We start chatting, and there you go. Instantly, we become Patagonia's drinkware company of choice. So it's been an incredible relationship to work with them. The last thing that happened in Liberia was before we left that trip in 2011 is when we sat down with them, we knew there was more work to do with clean water projects, but we said, how else can you help? And they said, we don't have a high school. K through 6 is the highest form of education kids will get in Buchanan, Liberia. And we thought, well, is there anything you guys have plans for? And they actually brought out handwritten blueprints that are immaculately done. They said, we have plans to build a high school, but we need financial help. And so we said, great, we'll start helping however we can. So apart from me, my friends and family and I, we ended up raising money. We ended up helping them build this high school. There it is completed. They honored us and did it in mirror blue, which is our color, primary color, which is pretty cool. And then they called back a couple years ago as they're finishing it, and they said, hey, we still need just a little bit more for blackboards and desks, pay some teacher salaries. And I thought, well, we're really good at making products, so why don't we just launch a bag line, and we'll help take some of the money there and give it back to the community there. So there's some of the desks. I really appreciate the left-handed desk. As a left-hander, I always had to kind of struggle with the hook thing. So they built a left-handed desk, which I thought was rad. And so as a company, we are a B Corp. We're part of Best of the World, which is the top 10% of B Corps. We've had that award now 2 years in a row. We've given over $400,000 to different organizations who have sustainable methods of empowerment, from Boise, Idaho to Seattle to Myanmar. We're doing rainwater collection, and we're helping get refugees onto bikes in the U.S., as well as kids, foster kids who don't necessarily have access to bikes. And really from this whole experience looking back, I always like to, leave people with something. And for us, it was like for me, it was how do I change the legacy that I was living? Because I had that life or death moment where I didn't know if I was going to actually make it through that ski accident. And so the question I have for you all is what is your legacy? And even for myself, like I have things that I want to improve upon. We all do. And so this question really transcends age and gender and time. It's something that it applies to everybody. And I really think the one question that can change the trajectory of your legacy is really asking the question, how can I help? It helped me with my business. It allowed us to expand into categories we never planned for. And so for you, if you're looking, how do I change the world? It doesn't have to be massive. It can be individual things where you can help your neighbor. John Keeley just asked, how can I help? He uses photography skills to help with the launch of our business. So that's my encouragement to you all today as we're just sitting here enjoying the sun is if you want to change your legacy, all you have to do is ask the question, how can I help? So that's it. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for listening to me. You can check us out at mir.com, MIIR.com.